Welcome back. We have a new quote review video that we are going to be covering today on luxury vinyl. Now, I have never seen something quite like this before. I've never seen a luxury vinyl product quoted this high, installed, all parts, pieces, labor, materials included. We're talking upwards of $20 a square foot installed. That is absolutely ridiculous. We're gonna go through this and at least kind of go through where I think it should be compared to where this customer is being quoted for a luxury vinyl product. So first, a little bit of backstory on this project. The scope of work involves doing, it's for 2 closets, a foyer, a laundry room, mudroom, 2 living rooms, a dining room, and a kitchen. So quite a full scope of work here. They're estimating ballpark roughly about 1,000 square feet. So that's what I have based all of the pricing on for this project. Of that 1,000 square feet, about 35% of it is carpet. Tile is less than 10%, laminate is roughly 5%, and then they have hardwood at 50%. The customer also stated that this is their first time considering a luxury vinyl product, and their main question when they were posting this quote in a forum is asking if this is a fair price or not, trying to get a gauge for if they're overpaying or basically right in line. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put up a screenshot that the customer provided of the quote that the flooring retailer gave them. So you will see the breakdown of the products, the materials, and all of the labor that is included in this estimate, as well as the grand total at the bottom. So first, we are doing a max LVP product. Now later on, obviously the next line states a Duramax, and that's what cued me in to know that this is a Mannington product. The Duramax is their WPC luxury vinyl product, and honestly, it is one of my personal favorites. And so this is not a cheap product by any means, but it is also not the most expensive out there. So again, I'll go into some of like the pricing breakdown in a moment. But that is the product that's been selected. We then have a couple of transition strips between a stair nose and an end cap. That's also another name for a baby threshold. Then it's going to show the installation line for that luxury vinyl product. Then we have another material, which is the primed white shoe molding. Then we have the installation of the shoe molds. Now we're getting into the removal. So we have wood removal, carpet removal, tile removal, and vinyl and underlayment removal. Now in the write-up, the customer had mentioned that he had laminate. Here it is notated as vinyl and underlayment. I'm going to be inclined to think that the customer does actually have vinyl and underlayment if that's what the retailer is reflecting, because ideally, they should have done a site inspection at this point so they know that it is actually a vinyl and underlayment rather than laminate, because those are 2 different removal processes and pricing. Then we get into some of the miscellaneous labor charges, such as appliance moving, toilet removal and resetting, pedestal sink, and furniture. The grand total for this project is coming in at $20,673.07, which if we go off of the 1,000 square feet, that's going to be right about $20 a square foot installed. Now, what we don't know for sure is, because there is some kind of gray areas here that could be impacting the price. And so to give this retailer the benefit of the doubt, we don't know exactly how much square footage the manufacturer is figuring. The homeowner is estimating that they have about 1,000 square feet. Now, does that include the waste or not? Again, we don't know that because we don't have the square footage reflected in this estimate, which that would be something, if I were to be working with this homeowner, is something that I would make sure that he's clear on. You know, how is there waste, how much waste? Another thing is that we also don't know the full details of the square footage breakdown for removals. So obviously there's going to be different charges of removal depending on the type of material being removed. And so again, we don't have the square footages for the different removal types. So maybe the customer's percentages are a little off on knowing exactly how much wood removal there is versus carpet versus tile versus vinyl. Ideally, what you would like to see is for the retailer to not only be providing these line-by-line breakdowns, but also to have at least a description of the scope of work, a written out, it could be a simple 1 paragraph, but essentially where there is an explanation and description of who is responsible for what and what exactly is happening on the project, because I think that that in and of itself can help clear up so many questions that homeowners have. As an example, the homeowner in the write-up, when they were asking for feedback on this estimate, specifically stated that the person who measured said that all the flooring would need to be removed. And the homeowner then said, I don't know specifics, but he said that the hardwood is high. So to me, it seems like this homeowner is, again, not fully understanding why the scope of work is what it is. Again, that is why I think that having those write-ups at the end of the estimates for retailers to do this, or installers, whoever is quoting a job, why that can be so helpful for homeowners, because they're not in this world, they might not necessarily understand why something is happening a certain way unless you explain it to them. So then what I did as a next step was I actually went through and I calculated the pricing for each of these line items that were provided based off of what the averages are in my area. I am in Virginia, and so the prices that I am sharing are going to be averages for my area. So just keep that in mind if you are in a higher priced region of the country. So I will go ahead and bring back up the estimate that we have initially showed from the retailer, but I'm going to put in the prices for what, again, our averages are in my area, so you can kind of see the difference and why I think that this customer is being way overcharged. So first up, the Duramax. Obviously the materials themselves can vary widely, especially a product like luxury vinyl that is coming from overseas and is subject to tariffs and supply chain issues and all of that. But I would say on average, it's been about $6 a square foot, give or take. So that would put the project, if it is based off of 1,000 square feet, at about $6,000. Trim pieces, both combined, $160. The luxury vinyl floating installation is going to come in right around $2.25 a square foot for a total line price of $2,250. Shoe molding primed, being a stocked product, is usually on the cheaper end, so you're looking at about $2 a linear foot here. To calculate your linear footage, one quick tip here is to take your square footage and divide it by 3, and that's going to get you pretty close to where you need to be for your linear footage. So using that formula, I've estimated that the cost of the shoe mold material itself is $675, and the installation of that shoe mold being $300, which comes out to 85 cents a linear foot. Wood removal is normally about $1.50. Now again, this is just for a standard hardwood removal. If there was more to it, then obviously that could impact the removal charges, but that comes to $750. Carpet removal is about 65 cents, and that typically does include removing the tack strips as well, and that would come to $250. Tile removal, depending on, again, how it's installed. If it's a mortar tile install, that is a lot more expensive. Here, I just figured that it's going to be a tile installation using Durac or a similar concept. So at $3.50 a square foot, that would be roughly $350. Vinyl removal at $1.75 a square foot for the vinyl and underlayment would come to $100 total for that line. So for the appliances, I estimated about $150 for the laundry room and the kitchen. We have the toilet removal and resetting, the pedestal sink, and the furniture. Now add all these numbers together and I came to the grand total of $11,685 for the entire project, which comes to $12 a square foot. Now remember, this customer had been quoted $20 a square foot for this project, which again just blows my mind, because at $20 a square foot, that is the same price as hardwood. That's more expensive than hardwood. That is sometimes more expensive than some tile products. And to be paying that much and getting luxury vinyl just blows my mind. You might as well just get hardwood at that point. Get it everywhere, be one continuous floor, and it'd be absolutely stunning. So let's say that though the customer was short. He didn't measure appropriately. It was larger than 1,000 square feet and he didn't take into waste. Okay, so let's just say worst case scenario, all right? It's another 500 square feet. So now we're actually being quoted, or the quote should reflect 1,500 square feet for this project, okay? So then you're looking at basically 16,000, 17,000 or so for this project. That's still, if he's 50% wrong on his square footage, he's still $4,000 over. He's still overpaying by $4,000. That's insane. So all that being said, my opinion, this guy's getting ripped off. Again, I don't we don't know the 100% specifics, but if you are being quoted $20 a square foot for a luxury vinyl installation and you don't know why, you need to ask some more questions because that is not normal. So if you or anyone that you know is getting quotes like this, send them my way. I'm happy to look at them and give you some feedback.